Now, if you're a beginner investor or you've been investing for a while, you've probably noticed the amount of ETFs, stocks, and different funds that get uploaded onto these platforms every single day. It can almost be quite overwhelming considering there is almost an infinite number of things to choose from. Sometimes we just need to understand where to start, and then we can get going and get building from there. Now, within this sea of abundance, there are some hidden opportunities that could amount to good returns considering the industries and the focuses that these ETFs are focused on, which is very exciting, especially if you can get yourself involved early. You have that growth to take advantage of. Now, of course, everything in this video is not financial advice. This is all my opinion, and I'm just highlighting some key trends and interests that you might find interesting as well. In this video, we will be talking about ETFs that every investor should consider if you're looking at future growth in some of the booming industries that we're seeing today. Now, these ETFs are fairly new when you're comparing them to much more mature funds like the S&P 500, so there could be some early opportunities to take advantage of if you do your right research and if you get yourself involved early. Now, the top 3 ETFs that we will be covering today cover AI and machine learning, robotics, and general high growth technology. Now, you're probably wondering, how can I actually find these ETFs? How can I find out what's in these ETFs, the risks, the returns that have been previously amounted within these funds? Now, I like to start on a website called Just ETF. This website will show you every single ETF from different providers, whether that be from Vanguard, Invesco, etc., etc. And you can see what's within these funds, prior returns, as I mentioned, and you can do your overall due diligence and research where these funds are investing. Now, as you can see on screen, we are going to be first talking about the BOTS Robotics ETF. Now, firstly, when you land on Just ETF, you'll be prompted with an overview of the fund. We can see whether dividends are accumulated or distributed. In this case, dividends are automatically reinvested back into the fund. We can also see some price action, a quick overview of the market at the moment, as well as some important features like the expense ratio, which is basically the cost of owning this ETF. In this case, it is fairly reasonable in terms of pricing. However, if you're looking at an expense ratio of over 1.5, that's when it starts to get quite expensive. And on the cheaper end, in terms of the S&P 500, you're looking at 0.05. So hopefully that gives you some comparisons as to what's reasonable, expensive, and fairly cheap. Now, another important piece of information is the number of holdings within this fund. Now, currently there are 42 holdings, and stocks can get added or taken away from this fund. We can also see what companies and what percentage of allocation that capital is being invested within certain stocks, and what regions that these are being invested within. Now, looking at this information is important because you don't want to invest in one ETF that has similar holdings to another ETF, and the only difference that may be is the price. So you could just be better off investing in fund X just because of the expense ratio is much favorable and cheaper. Now, the next ETF we will be exploring is the Invesco AI and Next Gen Software ETF, the ticker symbol IGPT. Now, this is one of my favorite ETFs simply because of the exposure within some of the most fast growing markets that we're seeing today, AI, and as well as semiconductors and microchips. Now, this is important because this is where I believe that the future could be heading, and I want to show you a different way to look at these funds on the website. Now, it's very simple to look at, and again, if you did need to have a breakdown, bring up ChatGPT to support you there as well, to break down some of the jargon. But generally, you will be seeing the same stuff as on Just ETF. However, this will be on their website. Now, I like to look at the fact sheet as it will show me exactly what is within this ETF and where it's invested, as well as some of the key information as well, such as the net asset value of the fund. Now, for the final ETF we'll be covering, it's a much more well-known ETF compared to the two we've just explored. This ETF is called the Nasdaq. Now, it's focused predominantly on the tech sector. It just excludes financial services within this fund. Now, it could be seen as a much more cheaper fund compared to the two we've just been speaking about, and it could be a great opportunity for investors who don't have that much exposure to tech, or just want to have more exposure to tech, as you won't have to buy the individual stocks. You can just get yourself involved into the Nasdaq and it will track those stocks. Now, at the moment, I don't have any active positions in any of these funds. However, I am definitely open to the opportunity of exploring them further because of the potential growth. Now, it's something that I am doing a little bit more research and due diligence around, as I do want to keep my portfolio fairly lean and heavily weighted towards the overall market, as you can see in my last video. But that is it for today's video. Now, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments some funds that maybe you're looking at, or if these funds are on your radar as well. I'd be happy to hear your opinions.